Welcome to my educational media evaluation for MarketLink Software. MarketLink Software, I was looking for economic experimenting software, and I looked around a lot of places and I found the MarketLink software available free at econport.org. And yeah, it's a interactive experimental software for economics. Terrific for use in a business or an economics class. It was designed at the collegiate level. It's used either for teaching or for research. And for that reason, I probably wouldn't recommend it for anything less than the high school level. But the MarketLink software I'll jump to my last one. I highly recommend it. And I love that it's free, of course, but more importantly is it's incredibly flexible in all the things that I can do with it. I can use it for to illustrate a variety of different economic principles. The kind of ties though into one of its worst features, which is that it's not always the simplest to use because there are so many features and so many options. For the instructor especially, not so much for the student, it can be a bit convoluted. But onto the software. I'll let you kind of judge for yourself. So like I said, it's at econport.org. I'll log off here just quickly a second. All you have to do is register if you want to be able to use the software. There are a bunch of other things on the website as well that are relatively useful. But the thing that I'm focusing on, of course, is the MarketLink software. They have a number of other softwares available as well. But the only one that I've really dove into is the MarketLink. There are a number of, if you're going to do an experiment, of course, you have to set up some configuration. There are a number of default ones that are available throughout the website. But I've all gone ahead and actually created a whole bunch of my own configurations as well to kind of test a whole bunch of different scenarios. And then when you want to go run an experiment, of course, one of the best things here is that all your results from your experiment are kept right here on the website, and you can go back, and I can go back and reopen an old experiment and see what happened. In order to make this work, of course, as you saw, I needed Java. Java is freely available, and of course everybody who's going to be in the experiment, so all your students are going to need a computer with Java installed. But yeah, all my data is still available, and I can use it it can create some cool graphs just for me all by itself. I'll come back to that in just a minute. If I want to add a new experiment, it's really quite simple. I give it a name, a description, I choose which configuration I want. So once you've created an experiment, it's actually, or a configuration, it's quite easy to actually run the experiment. So you have to give it a name and a file. I'm going to overwrite that file. That's fine. It'll save that data for you. And then I just wanted to briefly show, in the setup, there are a lot of things that you have to know what they do and maybe play around with a little bit. So the market environment, buyers and sellers, who's going to be buyers and sellers, and I set mine so that they'd alternate. You have to set up all the inducements, so I went through and randomized a whole bunch of them, and then you can also do a whole bunch of government intervention in the market. So maybe buyers have to pay a tax, or maybe the sellers have to pay a tax, or maybe there's a subsidy, or maybe there's some externality, or there's a price control. We can't a price ceiling or a price floor. So there's a lot of different economic theories on how these things would interact that we get to experiment and see. As for a student, it's really easy. They need an access code. It's probably going to be your email, and they simply join in an experiment. And we will open that file. Probably the best thing is for this student, so I'll be Tim1 here. Notice my first student is connected, and I am a seller. And it runs through, you have to read through a whole bunch of instructions. pretty good detailed instructions. They help you understand how you make a profit, how the buyers are making a profit, and they give a lot of nice screenshots of all the different parts of the seller's screen. So the bids and the asks, the market, um, what's going on in the market, how the buyer makes a decision, if they want to buy at the market price, if they want to place a bid. Same for the seller, what their asking price is, or if they just want to sell at whatever the market price is currently. And when they're done with instructions, they just wait, and I actually have to join it a second time in order to show you what happens. You should note, though, that I am acting as both player and instructor here, which is kind of nice. I can actually test the system and make sure it works all by myself, although I do recommend doing it with your student machines as well. But yeah, the buyer here runs through the same set of instructions. They wait for me to start the signal, and once I start it, their session will begin in a number of seconds. And there we go. What I wanted to show here was just simply that, the screen here is fair. There's a lot going on, and so it's not maybe the prettiest interface. It's not the easiest, and there's a lot of things that are happening. And for that reason, I do recommend highly doing a test game or a test couple rounds early on, because it's just, what's going on here? Because it can be a little bit tricky before users get it. In fact, I can even show you in the data here, they were trying to figure out how this system works, and eventually they prices actually merged toward an equilibrium as the rounds went on. So how do I use this in class? I love that I can use it for multiple lessons because it covers so many different parts of economics. I like to use it before teaching the theory so that students just get to experience it rather than trying to make their actions mimic the theory. And then I get to actually connect economic theory to results. And so here's just an example. Here's what it looks like in our textbook, and I won't go through all the parts of it, but here's a graph which shows all the same parts: the deadweight loss, the consumer surplus, the tax, the producer surplus, the same stuff that's maybe an abstract graph on page 92 of your textbook. It's a little different when I can connect it to, hey, remember that time when we did it in class, and here were your results, and here's what happened. So lastly, I'd say, yeah, I highly recommend the software. If you teach any economics or business, especially at the high school and above level. If you decide you want to try it out and you've got questions, by all means shoot me an email. I'd be happy to help, or send you some of my own configurations. So I hope you enjoyed this. Have a wonderful night.